Hello, Jane Roxana here, and this is show 2, and I'm going to be talking about Genesis 1 through 2, and let me read that real quick to start with. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Alrighty. But as just like the last show, we are going to start with evolution. And the main theory the evolutionists put out there is the Big Bang Theory. It is the one in all the textbooks and the one that you mostly hear about also. So I'm going to start with this one article. It is put out by Elizabeth Howell on space.com. And the title is, What is the Big Bang Theory? I'm not going to read the whole article. You can go look at the whole article later, but I'm going to read a few paragraphs out of it. The Big Bang Theory is the leading explanation about how the universe began. At its simplest, it says the universe as we know it started with a small singularity that inflated over the next 13.8 billion years to the cosmos that we know today. Because current instruments don't allow astronomers to peer back at the universe's birth, much of what we understand about the Big Bang Theory comes from mathematical formulas and models. Astronomers can, however, see the echo of the expansion through a phenomenon known as the cosmic microwave background. While the majority of the astronomical community accepts the theory, there are some theories who have alternative explanations besides the Big Bang, such as eternal inflation or an oscillating universe. First of all, when they talk about the Big Bang and the singularity, they don't even know if a singularity could even exist. So this is all assumption of what they kind of see. We can see what we see now, but what we perceive that is the past is all just a conception. It's all theory. There's no way to prove the past, and so we can only guess at it by what we see today. So what we see today is we can see the cosmic microwave background. They figured out how to picture it, but they do not. When they say that is the echo of the expansion through that phenomenon, that is merely a guess of what the cosmic microwave background is from and where it came from. So, and when they say they use mathematical formulas and models, we must remember that their models are in the assumption at the very first that there is no God. They do not put him into any of their models. And when as we're going through this, you'll find out that their mathematical formulas do not quite add up either. So, what exactly is a singularity? Well, that singularity, they claim, is the point in space. And I got my trusty whiteboard here. Super, super small. Smaller than the period on a page is what they explain it in some of the textbooks. Made it a little bit bigger here so you can kind of see. There it is. And that thing exploded. Now this is the funny thing about when they say this exploded. And they kind of gloss over this. Well, when something explodes, and it exploded into nothingness. Okay, remember, when there's nothing there, there is nothing. There's no way for anything to stop going. There's no friction. So when this exploded, and I'm assuming what they say about, what they mean about singularity, is that everything in the universe was contained in that little point. So when this exploded out, now remember when things explode, everything gets blown out. And when it exploded into nothing, all these, whatever these little particles are, keeps going out away from the singularity, further and further out. Everything's out. And the further and further out it gets, the farther and farther apart it gets. Because it's going out into nothingness. The nothingness is obviously endless. So all these particles are getting farther and farther apart. I've got limitless space here, but you can imagine as it's going out, further and further and further. Everything's getting further and further apart. So if everything's getting further and further apart, because it's limitless nothingness out there, how did any of these particles stop? How did it stop to begin with? So somehow all these particles stopped, and they're all super far from each other. Once they stopped going, which is an impossibility, because what caused all this stuff to stop? Theoretically, these things should still be just going out, spreading out into nothingness. So somehow these particles all stopped going out, or slowed down at least, and then all of a sudden gravity wells showed up. This is another thing they're just putting out there, that who knows where this came from. Where did gravity come from? Well, nobody really knows where gravity came from. So all these gravity wells are showing up. And everything we see in outer space now, you can see as gravities. Everything goes around things. We've got planets going around suns. Our solar systems spin like this, and in our solar systems, as they spin, especially the spiral runs, they spin this way, tighter and tighter up. So the longer they spin, the tighter they're going to be in the center. And soon, with enough time, all of our spiral galaxies will be super tight into one big ball of a galaxy. That's the way they're spinning. It's getting tighter and tighter. So everything is spinning. Now, the thing is, when everything exploded and everything's far apart, all these gravity wells popped up. Okay? And the evolutionists like to say, oh, and God just popped everything out of the universe by a magic. Well, this is about just as magical as anything saying that God, a supernatural being, created anything. This is just as magical, but not even more, because there is no intelligence behind any of this. So this is how somehow all this happened, from the smallest particles getting bigger and bigger, and all to planets and galaxies. So, and when you bring this up, things like this up, they don't even cover any of this stuff, how any of this happened. All you see on any of the things is this is what happened. All of a sudden, all the smallest particles start coming together. And the thing is, when all this in these gravity wells, so all in our solar system, all of our planets are formed from all the same materials in our solar system that, from the gravity of the sun, is pulled everything together. The problem with the particles as small as dust getting bigger and bigger to form the rocky planets is that once the particles start getting bigger, and the bigger particles start bouncing into each other, guess what happens? It breaks the bigger particles apart. So maybe the smaller particles can start sticking together, but once they start getting bigger, they start breaking each other apart as they start hooking, because everything is super fast in space. It's not the slow-mo, let's get together thing together in making planets. So they have a problem right there, is once the particles start getting big enough, they start bumping into each other and then breaking apart. So how on earth did a planet, especially a rocky planet, form to begin with? Then they've got the problem of the gaseous planets. The gas giants. Guess what? They've done experiments with gas in space. And guess what gas does in space? It does not come together. No. It separates, it dissipates. How on earth did gas come together? It does not do it in any of the experiments that they have done. So they have no, plus we have rocky giants, rocky planets, and gas planets. If all these planets were made out of the same materials in our solar system, how did we get rocky and then gas planets? It doesn't really make any sense. All of our planets should all be more or less made out of all the same material, but they're not. Another thing is, when something explodes and this is supposed to be spinning, everything that comes off of this spinning motion should have all been spinning in the same direction. But we have noticed that not only in our solar system, we've got planets and moons spinning in different directions. Even some of the galaxies out there in the universe are spinning in different directions. So how do they explain that? Well, they don't. They don't even really discuss that sort of thing. So back to the Big Bang Theory and the problem with the singularity. So here's another article from space.com, and it was written by Charles Coy, if I'm pronouncing his last name right, is C-H-O-I. And he has a theory on the singularity. And his title in this one is, Our Universe Was Born in a Black Hole. If our universe was born from a black hole, it could help solve the mystery of what came before the Big Bang and whether our universe was closed, flat, or open. It could also help scientists avoid problems associated with singularities or infinitely small points with infinite density. In theory, the universe was born from a singularity. So you remember, in theory. Every black hole encloses a singularity. Actually, they don't really know that for sure either. That's also a theory. However, singularities are big headaches for theoretical physicists. Remember, these guys are theoretical physicists, since the laws of physics break down around them. In my model, when the universe is born, there is no problem of having a singularity initially. Instead of being infinitely small, it had the radius of its parent black hole. Also, instead of black holes ending up with singularities, this model suggests they would end up with universes. Now you got to read how these words are written. He says, in my model. This model suggests, all right? There is no absolute scientific proof in these. These are just models to prove their claims. And remember, their models start out on the assumption that there is no God. Okay? One hole in this idea is one that turns up whenever wormholes are discussed. Exotic matter. In principle, all wormholes are unstable, closing the instant they open. The only way to keep them open is with an exotic form of matter with so-called negative energy density. Such exotic matter has bizarre properties, including moving in the opposite direction of normal matter when pushed. No one knows if such matter actually exists. This whole model that he's talking about is based on things that no one knows actually exists. Okay? But here this is written up as science. So when you're reading about evolution and the formation of the universe, when it's going back in history, you must read these articles properly. They say things like that. In my model. In principle. Then in the end, you always end up finding out no one knows if such matter actually exists. Okay, it kind of, tells the whole story right there. Let's go to another article. It's called The 5 Manifestations of Natural Phenomena. Now in Genesis 1:1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We're going to discuss this, and this is a point that we're going to find while reading these atheist scientists accidentally proving the principles of the Bible. And this is one of them. This is put out by Dr. Jeff Miller. I found this article, and he states it very nicely and neatly, and it's a short article, so I thought I'd read this instead of trying to explain it myself. Here it goes. Oh, okay, this article is by Dr. Jeff Miller, and it was from apologeticspress.org. For over a century, scientists have recognized that all natural phenomena in the universe can ultimately be divided into interactions between 5 basic fundamental manifestations. In 1882, staunch evolutionist Herbert Spencer, an English philosopher, biologist, and sociologist who was a prominent classical liberal political theorist of the Victorian era, recognized likenesses and unlikenesses among phenomena, which are segregated into manifestations. Lots of words there. And then into space and time, matter and motion and force. He wrote, these modes of cohesion under which manifestations are invariably presented and therefore invariably represented, we call space and time, matter and motion. Through space, time, matter, and motion are apparently all necessary data of intelligence. He even stated that, but he still says, yet a psychological analysis shows us that these are either built up of or abstracted from experiences of force. He claims it seems to be an intelligent design, but no, it's just an experience of force. So time, force, action, space, and matter are the 5 manifestations of all scientific phenomena. So instead of saying intelligent design, he says a force. Star Wars! No, okay. This truth, fundamental to understanding science, was articulated by an agnostic in the 19th century. That's who Herbert Spencer was, an agnostic. And yet these fundamental principles were articulated in the very first verse of the Bible a millennia ago. In the beginning time, God, force, created action, the heavens, space, and the earth, matter. It is truly amazing that a renowned apostle of agnosticism would be the one to verbally articulate this discovery from science, a discovery which gives significant weight to the contention that one can know there is a God and that the Bible is his inspired word. And further, it is notably ironic that the very man from whom Charles Darwin took the phrase survival of the fittest would be the man that unknowingly found evidence specifically supporting the inspiration of Genesis chapter 1, the very chapter of the Bible that relates the truth about man's origins. And Acts 14:17 rightly says, nevertheless, he, God, did not leave himself without witness, in that he did good. Basically, again, creation is God's witness. All right. Okay, I would like to read Romans 1:19 through 22. This is my very most favorite verse because it describes a lot of these atheist scientists to a T. Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Genesis 1:2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. The universe, as first called into existence by God, was an elemental existence, still unformed and unenergized, not yet ready for habitation or void. It would not be perfect until the end of creation week, when God would pronounce it very good and finished. The earth material was suspended in a matrix of water, completely static, and therefore in darkness. Now, when he created the heavens and the earth, remember, outside of that was God, and God was all light, and in him was no darkness. So the darkness itself of the universe is actually created. All right, a created space. So that was what he was going to put into it, all of his creation. And the earth is a big, pretty much a ball of water that contains all of the matter that he's going to use to create the heavenly bodies and the earth and all of his creation from. All right, and the Spirit moved. All right, as the Spirit moved across the face of the water, that's when, now remember, the Holy Spirit is God's power. That's when He energized the universe, creating the gravity that we see that He uses to keep all the planets and galaxies in motion. And also, that's probably where we get the cosmic background radiation. I am just guessing at that. I will tell you that much. But that would only make sense when it happened at the beginning, the very first day, because all this is in need of, for all of creation to start. All right, so what are the logical implications of this? I found this little article here at icr.org, and it doesn't say that it's from anybody. It's just some sort of article anyways. Applying the principles of cause and effect, it is clear that scientific logic indicates that the cause for the universe in which we live must be traced back to an infinite first cause of all things. Random motion or primeval particles cannot produce intelligent thought, nor can inert molecules generate spiritual worship. The first cause of limitless space must be infinite. The first cause of endless time must be eternal. The first cause of boundless energy must be omnipotent. The first cause of universal interrelationships must be omnipresent. The first cause of infinite complexity must be omniscient. The first cause of spiritual values must be spiritual. The first cause of human responsibility must be volitional. The first cause of human integrity must be truthful. The first cause of human love must be loving. And the first cause of life must be living. We would conclude from the law of cause and effect that the first cause of all things must be an infinite, eternal, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, spiritual, volitional, truthful, loving, living being. All right, that's it for today, or this show, and until the next show, which we discuss the next part of Genesis 1, which is light. All right, bye.